the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the Scottish-based band The Wilderness Children, because I recently spoke to Andrea Reid to find out more about life, love, poetry and all the other groovy stuff. So this is the interview. So after several minutes of interest and casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. Andrea, it's over to you.
Well, I suppose David Bowie as well. I just adored him. And then maybe when I got into my kind of mid-teens, there was a record shop. I lived in a tiny little town called Blairgowrie, up north, past Perth. And there was a little tiny record shop, which I didn't go into because it was full of guys that were maybe 5 years older than me, and it was a bit intimidating. So I used to go to Woolworths in Dundee and buy some singles and things. And I think mid-teens, it was just what you would expect. There were bands on in Dundee like Simple Minds we went to see, and the Smiths and things like that. But I guess when I left school, I was listening to bands like that, and I went to work in DC Thompson's in Dundee, who did magazines. They did teenage magazines like Jackie and Blue Jeans and Patches, which if you were a young girl in the 70s and 80s, you would have read them.
Yes. Did they have a copy of Misty by any chance?
I don't know if they did or not, but probably. But we used to get to interview bands, so I got more interested. And then I guess when I left there and started uni, I loved the Clash before that, and bands around then, a whole range of them. But I was starting to really love things like the Velvet Underground, all that kind of 60s stuff. And then I guess the band that changed my life, because we all have one, was the Jesus and Mary Chain.
Right. They were that sound, I suppose, did it just kind of blow your mind?
It was just the sound of it, yeah, and listening to it on John Peel and knowing they came from not far away, and it was just the racket, and they were so unpleasant when they played live. It was just marvellous. It was like everything I was just maybe 2 or 3 years too young for in the late 70s. And there they were making that noise and looking as cool could be.
Yes.
I just loved them. So
Yes.
them, and then I guess all the other bands that were around then. There was a multitude wherever you were in the UK at that point in time of bands that you could listen to and just love. And I guess when I was younger, before all of that, there were other bands. You would listen to friends' dads' record collections, and for some unknown reason, we all had to listen to Cream a lot because everybody's dad had a Cream record.
Right. God, that's that's quite cool, actually.
I know.
My dad was more into sort of rather scary country and western, really.
There was a bit of that as well, but you can't not like a bit of country and western if you live in Glasgow.
Right, okay. Well, he liked things like Boxcar Willie and Jim Reeves and sort of not the kind of country that you thought, oh, thank God, I quite pleasant. No, it was a bit, I don't know. I'm sure it was all right, okay. Crystal Girl, Charlie Pride, those sort of country artists that, yes, it was a bit hard work, actually, at that stage. Yes, but Cream, I missed. And did you have any other brothers or sisters who had a musical influence on your life?
No, my little brother was quite a bit younger than me, about 6 years younger than me. So no, but I guess friends in the town, and there wasn't much to do where I lived. So we all had to do things like join musical things, and we did songs from the shows and things like that.
Right.
So I guess we liked musicals when we were 12, 13, 14, because that's what we were doing. We were listening to each other's records and whatever we could find in people's cupboards, buying things. I had a friend who used to be able to buy a whole single every week with her pocket money.
Yes.
And it was just a range of things, but I think probably 14 onwards, that was when it started to broaden out into other stuff. And you could start to sneak off into Dundee to see the odd gig now and then, whether it was in a big hall or it was called Fat Sam's Dance Factory at that point in time, where you could get in there if you put a bit of makeup on.
God, that sounds very exciting, actually. I come from the countryside, so we were a little bit, I wouldn't say backward, but culturally it wasn't that great, actually, looking
No.
back on it. It was a bit of a heavy metal kind of environment of,
Oh, there was a lot of that. Yeah, a lot of that.
Status Quo were the band, they were the absolute band, and then you had all the usual, the Led Zeppelins and Deep Purple and Black
Yeah,
Sabbath and
yeah.
punk,
There
but,
was all that in the countryside where I lived as well.
and punk never appeared at all, actually.
No, we had a bit of that in the town. There was a small group, and punk came through. In fact, I remember there'd been a newspaper story, and it said, I can't remember the city it said, but it was along the lines of 1977 or 78 riots in wherever. Brighton or
Right.
somewhere, and riots in Blairgowrie, because I think 3 people maybe had a fight in the town or something.
God, it sounds so
Who knows?
sounds so nice, so quaint now. So what year did you hit 16? Did you leave school at 16, by the way?
Yes. Would it be 83?
Oh,
83
83. So
ish.
83, so which is
82,
a perfect
83.
yes, because that was the year of the Smiths, wasn't it? So I
It
always
was.
think,
So that would be why I'd been good to see them. Yeah.
right, and you got to see them on their first tour.
Uh-huh.
God, that must have been very exciting, actually,
It
capturing the
was
wave of indie
actually.
pop.
Yeah, yeah. They were fab. They were really, really good. Enjoyed them. And it must have been about the same year as Simple Minds, because I remember seeing them around the same time. And then I think Boy did his Let's Dance tour. I went to see that as well.
Oh yes, that was 83 because I saw him
Yeah,
in Milton Keynes. So he probably had a sort of gig in Scotland somewhere.
yeah. I think it was maybe Murrayfield or somewhere I went to see him. So
Right.
all around that age, that was the things that were round about. But I was branching out because I did love the Clash, and I loved anything, 2 or 3 years older. I was really loving at that point in time.
Did you go
Really
through a bit
loving.
of a teen phase before that with the Osmonds and David Cassidy, or were you a bit too
No,
young?
no,
No.
I didn't like them at all. I was always quite adamant that I didn't like the Osmonds, and I wasn't keen on David Cassidy at all either. I did quite like the Bay City Rollers when I was little,
Right.
but I wasn't allowed to get the clothes.
That's so
So
sad, isn't
it was
it?
so disappointing. I
It
so
was.
wanted those socks with their faces on them. You
Oh
know.
God, I know that is heartbreaking. And actually, if it wasn't for the Bay City Rollers, the Ramones wouldn't have sort of got their sound, would
Very
they?
true.
So
Very
I mean,
true.
really, that is where punk started, really.
Yeah.
So yes, people don't, they miss that. They think, was it New York, was it London? But it wasn't. It was in Scotland with the Bay City Rollers. So did you? So did you at that stage from sort of 83 to onwards? Did you just kind of consume all the sort of the music that was kind of appearing in the charts and on John Peel at that stage?
Well, John Peel, yes. Right, going back and trying to delve into things in the 60s, I think. Um, it's starting to really delve further back. I mean, I remember us going and buying lots of blues records, uh, lots of real old stuff like Robert Johnson and things, and getting into that kind of stuff, but also loving a lot of the bands that were around, but steadily becoming more and more interested in the bands that weren't in the charts but were on John Peel.
Right.
And listening there for what was going on, and the bands that were round about where we were and where we were living became increasingly important. And it became, yes, about the music, but about the whole sound of it. Dundee was very different musically from Glasgow and Edinburgh, um, and really quite separate from the kind of sounds from the Shop Assistants and the Pastorals and all these bands that were around. We felt ourselves quite separate from that because it was only a few miles away, but it felt like a world away at that
Well,
time.
yes. Did the Soup Dragons appear on your radar at that
Oh, they
stage?
did indeed. Yes, yes. And they're still going strong just now.
They are still happening. I just think that's amazing. Yes, I know when John Peel played Hang 10, we just were very excited, weren't we? So,
Oh, Sean's so good. And I think they've been playing quite a lot of gigs recently.
yes, there's been a bit of interest in them, actually, which is quite delightful because,
It is.
I think when things are happening, we sort of obviously just don't sort of think, oh, yes, I'll be listening to this in 40 years' time. And you think it's just going to be here and gone tomorrow. And, because otherwise I kind of regret not going to gigs and taking more pictures or taking any photographs.
Oh, I know.
And collecting sort of memorabilia, because those flyers and posters, they sort of become artwork, later on, don't they?
They
But at
do.
the time, you just throw them in the recycling or
I
worse
kept
still,
a lot of
landfill.
tickets. Tickets.
Yes, well, that's very lucky, actually, because I've also done that. And there's a couple that I kind of think, I can't quite remember seeing that band.
No.
And
I think my favourite one was I kept a poster. It was The Wedding Present. And I think it was, in fact, I know it was April the 1st, 1986, in a little pub in Dundee. And we thought it was a joke. And it was £1 or something to get in. And there were hardly anybody there. And The Wedding Present were doing really well at that point in time. And they came up and they played. And I kept that poster because that was just a really special gig to get up close when they were just kind of doing so well at that point in
yes,
time.
absolutely. That was, I remember John Peel playing it Once More and going off and buying the 12-inch single, which was, yes. And did you ever see, there was a film, I mean, talking about amazing films that they get made now, on the Wedding Present album, George Best, there was a film that was made a few years ago, probably actually 5 years now. That's really, I mean, it's incredible because at the time, I liked it and I thought it was great, but I didn't realise the angst and all this sort of drama of that particular album and the drummer and
lots
the
of drama. And they were so fast when they played. It was 100 miles an hour, which I always like. It goes back to the Ramones and things. I love that pace. And they hammered the guitar.
Yes,
which was exciting.
In fact, I think they were just touring America recently. I think they were sort of got a few dates there. So they've done incredibly well, actually. So that was cool. So then how did the band start to develop? Did you have any dreams of starting a band during that sort of mid-80s period?
Yeah, so I guess just latterly, finishing school, there was a bit of stuff with some people I knew, and then was in Dundee and met my husband Fraser, and we did some bits and pieces with a variety of people, just playing around in studios in Dundee with some of our friends, Simon and Sandy, and wrote some songs and things, but didn't go very far with it. Then did some more things with another group of people, and then I think Fraser met some guys who were in a band called the Wild House,
Right.
from Dundee, and then met these other guys that had sort of started this band called the Wilderness Children. So there was a few of them. There was Billy and Ian and Pete and John, and we somewhat infiltrated it, and then did a gig with us in it as well. And then personnel changed, and latterly it was Phil on drums, Fraser interchangeable on bass or guitar, Mike on guitar, Pete Moog sometimes on bass, and that was kind of the final version of us, which came about maybe across a year or so when we did quite a lot of gigging. We gigged everywhere.
Right.
All over Scotland and up and down England, and we played a lot.
So were you sort of the main band or sort of on support duty at times, or both?
Both. We played with some real nice wee bands in Scotland. There was a super band from Perth called This Poison, who were friends with the Wedding Present. They were great.
Did they do the song called Finger on the Pause Button?
Oh, it sounds familiar.
Yes.
We used to go to a place in Perth and play there in the Riverside with bands like This Poison. And there was guys there put some really nice bands on there over a period of time. There was another band we really liked playing with called Blam Blam YC from Ayr. And I think the guy in them latterly did dance stuff a few years later, but they were fantastic. And then various bands across Scotland, the Wild House, I think there was a band called the Jobsons. And then we would sometimes play on our own and headline. We did a lot of universities. Our favourite gigs probably were down in England and London. And then we played not Glastonbury, the festival, but down around Glastonbury, which was good. I think it was bands like the Blue Aeroplane were playing with us and folks like that.
My God. So was this kind of 87 time?
86 through to maybe 90.
Right.
2, 3, 4 years. We played with Joe Strummer at one point, which was a big deal because we all loved Joe Strummer.
Yes. God, that must have been kind of extraordinary, actually, getting on that bill.
It was. It was called the Rock Against the Rich tour because they had to rock against racism, and this one was Rock Against the Rich. So that was right up our alley because it was, but times were hard then, as they are again.
And the comic strip brought out Eat the Rich, didn't they? I think around that time.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a connection, but I do remember sort of being very keen on the comic strip.
Yes.
And I think Lemmy was even in it as well, which was very exciting. So,
I think so.
So there
but no,
you go.
the Joe Strummer gig was special, so we really enjoyed that.
And did you have to give up your day jobs to start?
Oh God, no! I was well. I say no. There was a thing then called youth training schemes. So my husband was doing that, where you got made to do something vocational if you didn't have a job for your dole money. I was at uni, had a kid, stopped uni for a while, went back. So we weren't making money. I don't know how we packed it in. I don't know how we did, but we did. It was just what we were doing.
But in those days, you got a grant with the university.
You got a grant at the university, and you got unemployment benefit.
Yes, I know, and sometimes housing benefit. I remember my
yes,
because my brother, who was a student in the 70s, I mean, they could sign on during the Easter, Christmas, and summer holidays. I mean, in fact, they were so unbothered. They didn't. They just thought, oh, what's the point? I can't. That's quite a lot of effort. And you think, because the grant kind of would just cover your life, you know. I mean, you'd ended up with 0 at the end of your degree, but you had 3 good years, and that was it. That was kind of the expectations. What was your degree in, by the way?
Teaching. I did a B.Ed in teaching. Yeah.
Nice. God, so you really were sort of, yes, God, I can't believe how much you were doing at this time. Well, you weren't even 20 then, were you?
Just, 19 through 20 onwards kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. We were busy.
You were I can tell your calendar was full, actually. So were you just getting in your transit van from Dundee and just going, right, we've got a gig in London, 8 hours later, we're here?
Yes. We had... we used to get a loan of a van. You see, you're saying about grants and things. You know, people didn't have much money, but because there was that going on, because there was, I mean, times were terrible. This was just after the miners' strike. There was a poll tax going on. Life was miserable, you know, and we were bleak, but optimistic at the same time and angry. But there were things that you could hook into. So you could get this van from a place in Dundee called the Grey Lodge. There was a resource centre for the unemployed, which was just a hub of creativity for unemployed folks in Dundee, where you could drop in, use a computer, which was kind of special then.
Oh, yes, I know.
And, you know, and they did a lot of artwork and music, and they would put gigs on. So we would hop in the van, somebody would drive us, and off we would trundle and not wash for quite some time, sleep on people's floors, and then come back just absolutely manky dirty, but having had a great time to ourselves.
Yes, because that was the 80s, wasn't it? It was the Thatcher decade, and it had started with the Falklands, then the miners, as you mentioned, and Greenham Commons, so that felt very grim. And then we had Chernobyl as well, which was even grimmer. So, well, not even grimmer, but it was just grim. So yeah, and I think with, you know, there were so many bands because the unemployment figures were so high. So there was job seekers allowance and enterprise allowance schemes as well. So you know, there was a sort of sense of, well, there's no jobs available, so we'll just form a band and try and
also a
get.
sense of there's nothing else hopeful at the
No,
moment, you
I
know.
know there was no plan B, was there?
No, so people would make themselves hopeful in the midst of what was a bit bleak and grey and sometimes a bit grim. You would make your own thing, make your own little tribe, and try and get on with life and have a bit of optimism in it.
Yeah, because the poll tax was introduced the year before it was in the UK, wasn't it? In England.
Yeah,
Did
so
they trial it in Scotland first? And
oh
went,
yeah, they trialled it in
that worked
Scotland.
really well.
No,
We'll
it
go
didn't
with
work
that
well
one.
at all.
Indeed, I know that was when she got a bit too power crazed there, didn't she? Really, just a bit. Yeah.
You could say that. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so you got the band, and so, God, I'm impressed you were down in Glastonbury. I'm not necessarily the festival, but sort of going all the way down there, because motorways were really hard work in those days. I mean, they're not much fun now,
Yeah.
but I just remember things taking a very long time to get
I
from
think
A to B.
our drummer's brother was driving us down there at that point in time, and people would put us up, and we would arrive, and you know, I wouldn't have had us in the house the state we were in, but they would quite happily let us sleep on the floor for the night and put us on a gig, and you know, it was great fun. It
Yes,
was good.
absolutely. I know.
Mhm.
I'd sort of, well, you know, I sort of remember thinking back at some of those moments, thinking, God, we lived in houses without central heat and hot water, and even ability to wash ourselves or clean our clothes. So I often wonder what. It was very strange, but there was like, no, we definitely had. We had to go to the laundrette occasionally, but there's definitely no bath or shower. I mean, it was all rather. I thought, God, we never washed, did we? Really?
It was probably quite grubby. Don't think anybody cared.
No, I mean, Glastonbury Festival definitely didn't have any smell
No.
of sort of aftershave
No.
or perfumes. It was very, until you went after a festival and you went into into the petrol station, and then you sort of went, wow, with all the other people who'd left the festival site. Then you kind of realised how you smell and thought, oh dear.
Yeah.
I can see why people are turning around wondering what that smell was. But anyway, never mind. There was no packing of clean underwear in those days, really.
No, absolutely not. So no, we
Yes.
were gigging all over the place, and I think we played with Dinosaur Junior as well at one point.
Gee, that is amazing. God, I
Yeah,
hope
that was pretty cool.
Have you archived your amazing kind of gig list here?
We have archived a lot of it. We had a lovely guy in Dundee, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, can't remember how long ago it was, got in touch. And he had been feeling quite depressed. And he'd come across one of our songs or a tape or something. And he'd become really quite obsessed about it. And he'd done a lot of research, got in touch with us, and he helped us to archive things and got us to put our stuff up on Facebook and all that kind of thing. So yeah, we've archived everything now.
I
So we've
know.
got most stuff up there. Yeah.
And is it mostly on Facebook or your kind of bits and pieces?
Mostly on Facebook. There's quite a lot on there, quite a lot of videos and pictures and posters and various bits and bobs that we've popped up there.
God, those
Interviews
photographs are
and
so
things.
sort of evocative, aren't they, actually?
They're very of the time, aren't they? Mhm.
Did you bleach your hair at that stage, or was it?
No, it wasn't naturally.
The short cropped hair is it's quite, you know, quite of its time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely bleach. I think there was a variety of colours going on there at that time. But no, there's quite
Yeah.
a lot of stuff on there.
Yes, no, I'm glad. I love seeing all the archiving. I mean, you must have noticed in the last 5 years, there's so many books have been written and published, and exhibitions and films made. So it is great that this period of music, which, you know, when I started doing this in about 2018, there was just no interest in that.
That's right.
Indie pop world at all. It was like,
Yeah.
and the bands hadn't thought about it for decades either. I think it was.
That's it.
It was like, I can't remember anything about it, but you know, anyway, and then it all starts to appear, and you kind of, you can remember everything. Yeah. So did you have a manager, by the way? Did you have any sort of?
No, we just did it ourselves. We wrote a lot of letters. We phoned a lot of people. and we used to give out demo tapes everywhere. I think that's how we ended up playing in London. I think it was a Jesus and Mary Chain gig, and there was some kind of vague connection we made with somebody in the audience, and we started ourselves off to London. So it was just a lot of hard work, and Fraser was constantly writing letters, and we did used to pester 53rd and 3rd a lot, but they were having none of it. They just thought, I think, that we were too grubby and noisy for them.
Right.
But we wrote umpteen letters. We were always phoning up places for gigs, and, you just did everything by the phone, and it wasn't your own phone. It was a phone box in the street.
Yes, with those 2p pieces.
Yes, yeah.
and the smell of kind of bladder. Yeah, Jesus. Yes, I know. Phone boxes were sort of like a place, weren't they, really?
Oh, they were just horrible, the phone boxes. So we did that, and I guess that's how we got gigs, but we were busy. We were very busy.
So when did you start sort of going into the studio and sort of putting together a demo?
Well, we were always doing demo tapes. We had we didn't have a practice place to begin with, so we lived in this little 2 up, 2 down maisonette council house in Dundee. So we cut a hole in the floor and climbed down and made the underneath of the house our practice area. You couldn't actually stand up, but you could sit down and practice. So that's where we practiced.
Right. So that's why there's a lot of gigs of you, not gigs, but you all sitting in chairs.
Probably.
Right. It all makes... Like, I sort of... So did you, without getting too practical, so you cut a hole, did you used to just have to drop through, or did you sort of have something like Trumpton and all sort of go down a...
No, we just dumped down. It wasn't that far down, and we put carpet tiles and things in it.
Right.
And hid down there. But no, we did our own demo tapes on wee 4 tracks and things. And then I vaguely remember being in somebody's house in Carnoustie and doing a demo tape and standing in a toilet in the house trying to get a decent sound on the mic. It was the only place we could get a wee bit of an echo going on. And then I think probably the first single we did in, I'm trying to remember, it was maybe Chambers Studio or something it was called. It was a place in Edinburgh. A guy called Jamie ran it. So we saved up enough money to go through there. And he was great. We loved that. So,
right.
That took a bit of time and effort and money and saving up the 5 pences you got here and there, and the bit of money for a gig that you got, and paid off your petrol and just saved up so we could go to the studio. So that's what we did.
And that was it. So, yes. Can you remember how much it cost at that stage?
No, but it wasn't terribly expensive, or we wouldn't have been able to.
No, so that, Chamber Studios in Edinburgh. Was it quite well known, actually, as a sort of...
I think he maybe recorded some stuff of Thrums earlier on as well.
Right.
Now, I can't remember who else he recorded, but he was a really nice guy, and it was good fun. We would go through there and you could get a day, 2 days, and it couldn't have been expensive. Or we wouldn't have gone.
Yes.
And then we would do videos. So we had one of our friends was at ARC school, so he did the videos for us, just as projects. And I guess that was quite unusual then that we were doing that, and then we would have other folk would do slideshows for us for our gigs, of just random stuff that would go up at the back of us. And we also had a plastic sheeting at one point that we would put up in front of us, because sometimes people would throw things. So we would put that up and shine the slides onto the plastic sheeting.
Oh, my God.
Looked quite good, actually, I think, looking back.
Yes. So
it was quite an industry.
Well, absolutely. It's got a very creative world. I mean, when you break down all those different roles and sort of jobs, it's quite, it sort of develops one's skill base, really, isn't it? Because your first single was the one which is We're a Council House punk rock band featuring Midsummer Night's Dream, Go to Hell, and Mrs. Susan Spence. So can you remember how those songs kind of came about and were formed?
I think Go to Hell, maybe Peter Moog wrote it. So I don't know how he came about it, but it was just quite a nice wee tune. Mrs. Susan Spence was really quite angry. We were very angry. But I think the name for it came, I think Fraser, my husband, had been at the dentist and she'd pulled out his wisdom teeth, and it must have stuck in his mind, her name, as a good name to use. But it was just really quite a cross kind of feeling, Mrs. Susan Spence. And Midsummer Night's Dream kind of talks a bit about being, 21 and looking up. It talks about looking over at the scarn and it's burning again. It was where we lived in Dundee, in this council area. There was always a fire, and so it would be the experiences that we were experiencing, feeling that the world could be better, but it was pretty damn bleak at the moment. So I guess that's where we were coming from. And if you have a copy of that single, it's got a sticker on it that says, "Pay as little as possible."
Right.
Because we had put on it, pay no more than £1.40, and then we took it through fast, and they said, you can't put that in the shops, they'll not sell it, you'll need to put something else over that. So we put pay as little as possible.
Right.
Because we were still wrapping things up in newspapers and sending them away because we didn't have the money to wrap them in anything else.
Well, yes, yes, I do remember those. Alternative to Christmas paper, you used to wrap them in newspaper, didn't you, instead?
Yeah,
I think it was a bit of a thing, wasn't it, really? So because this was on your own label, wasn't it, DOS Records?
Yeah.
Do you remember how many you got printed at that stage?
Be 1,000, 2,000 maybe.
And did they all disappear and go?
They sold quite well. We could get them quite easily, and there was a good little music shop in Dundee called Groucho's. It was a fabulous music shop. And there'd been talk there about, at one point, a record label putting one out for us. It all kind of fell through, so we paid for it ourselves. But we'd take them through to Edinburgh, and then they would distribute them for us through Fast and whatnot.
Yes.
So, it worked fine. But most of them would sell. And I think one of them, it was maybe the Tesco song. I think it was something like 14 in the NME indie charts at one point. So they were selling, not in huge numbers, but the indie kids would buy them here, there, and everywhere. What few of the indie kids there were.
Because you did have a flexi disc, didn't you? A track on a flexi. There's a Good Time A-Coming and on the West Coast. Yeah. So who was that with? Was that Chowable Records? Or was that still your label? Did you do the flexi disc to begin with?
We did the flexi disc as well. It was on, I think it was Sowing Seeds.
Right.
Fanzine. I think that became, the folk had Shea Records. Shea, CHE. And there was one that one of our friends, I think it was called Magic Bus, he calls them at one point.
Oh, yes.
So a guy called Andy Wood from Dundee, who's a great friend, he still puts a lot of gigs on in Dundee. He's always just been really, really interested in music. He's one of these guys that could just tell you anything you ever wanted to know about music.
Yes.
So he helped a lot with putting the records out, and that was his label, that one.
Right.
He did a lot of the press for us. He was great, still is great, but he's still putting gigs on up in Dundee quite frequently.
He's got energy, hasn't he? He's got stamina, actually, keeping that going. It's quite hard work, isn't it?
Stamina. Yeah.
Oh, yes, it must be quite a labour of love. Did you, at that stage, did you sort of want to get signed to a sort of either another label, a bit more like Rough Trade, or even a major at that stage?
I guess we would have loved that, but it just wasn't going to happen coming from Dundee unless you were just remarkable and you were Billy Mackenzie or somebody, It just, it was more... Yes, that would have been amazing, but it was more about the doing.
Right.
And the being. you know, it was about creativity looking back. I don't think I could have pinpointed that then. Um, but it was about doing different things, different people. And like you said, there was quite a little industry. So you've got somebody like Andy helping you out, doing things with Letraset and sticking stuff and trying to do press and helping put on gigs. And then you've got Mike's partner at that time, who was a mural trained artist from the art school, doing huge backdrops and badges and T-shirts. And, you know, the guy who drove the van, Joe, who had to do with the Resource Centre for the Unemployed, he was taking photographs.
Right.
And we had another guy who was quite a bit older than us, who was an artist called Pete Horrobin. I think he lives in the Netherlands now. And he had a flat called the Data Attic in Dundee, where he kept and recorded things. So if you went to visit him, he would take your photograph, put it on a card, the date you visited, what was happening, and keep it. So he was archiving everything that
Yes.
was happening around him, and he would do slideshows for us, various other things.
Have you ever seen his archive, by the way?
No, but I saw an art show that he did maybe about 15 years ago in Glasgow. He came over and there was a big art show on in the city centre, and I'd gone down to see it. And here there were pictures of us on these little cards that we'd visited on Tuesday, the 5th of November or 6th of January.
God, it sounds brilliant.
It was about that.
Yes, it was very. So, what was his name? God, I want to find. What was his name? Peter?
Pete Horrobin, Horobin.
Well, it sounds amazing, actually.
But these people were all involved looking back with the Resource Centre for the Unemployed. And they would put on gigs and art events there. You know, they would bring people over and they would put things on. I remember a man, I mean, this just sounds silly. He was called tentatively An Inconvenience. That was his new name. And he came over from the States to do some kind of video, audio thing in the Resource Centre for the Unemployed. I mean, these are really quite remarkable things when you look back and think, oh, that was a lot going on.
Yes, well, absolutely. God, that's I know it sounds fascinating. Actually, look, there were like these art centres in churches, weren't there? Norwich had one, and there was always, you know, like there'd be someone doing a drama workshop, someone doing black and white photography. You know, there was always these courses that would be sort of being put together, which was quite interesting actually. And there was quite a few around the city, which I often wonder. I wished somebody, you know, I don't know, I wish someone had archived those places as well and took photographs, because you think, God, they must have been really interesting, the people who got them together. They must have, and there was a place called the Scrap Box where you could go and get material that would be kind of used in offices or industry, and they would just put all these scraps, rather than put them in landfill, they would put them to this place, and you could just go and pick up stuff if you wanted, like paint and wood and bits and pieces. It was kind of quite interesting actually, you know, in a rather groovy way. It makes it sound very glamorous, but
it really wasn't.
It really wasn't, was it? It was all very grim and depressing, but you know, there is a sort of sense of like, I know, I often think the 80s was a bit depressing, but the soundtrack was brilliant.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then you've done your second single, The Plastic Bag from Tesco's. This was 89. Yeah. So as that decade was going, because I felt that, you know, being there, and the Smiths were there, who were my sort of band, I suppose, from 83 to 87. And then they split up. And then there was a sort of real shift of music started to change. Ecstasy came in, which I thought played quite a big part of musical sort of soundtracks and sonic sensations, and definitely the Soup Dragons definitely sort of swallowed the
absolutely pill. Yeah.
they took the pill and went in a different direction. So what was it like for you in a band? Did you feel like, oh, actually, though on saying that, you did have My Bloody Valentine coming along. And
well, My Bloody Valentine were the one band that we could agree we really liked, you know, because everybody had different musical tastes. But My Bloody Valentine were just incredible. We loved My Bloody Valentine. And the Pixies were hanging around about then as well. And, there
Yes.
was still a lot of things coming along. It wasn't just about, going to dance in a field with
No.
an E. So there was still a lot of stuff happening that we just loved. So yeah, things shifted, but yeah, My Bloody Valentine, bands like that were kicking about. There was a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah, because I saw the Pixies and they were with on 4AD
Yeah,
playing with the Throne Muses at the time. I remember there was a double
that's
bill.
right. Yeah,
And thinking, God, this is all, you just took it as like that's the normal thing to do. But yeah, there's, looking back, you thought, God, what a great double bill that was. So yes, there was a sort of that whole scene, and bands like Lush were sort of coming along, and there was other sort of noise bands like Silverfish and the Faith Healers were also happening.
mhm,
So there was that North London kind of noise scene as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
So yeah, so
yeah,
when you came to do so you did your second single, then your third one, which was on this Magic Bus Records, wasn't it?
yeah. So
89.
that
If
was
you love him.
Andy's. Yeah, yeah,
Right. So he said, look, let's put it together. Oh, this was
yeah,
recorded at Seagate Studios. Was this a different engineer?
yeah.
Stuart Firm.
This was in Dundee, in the studios in Dundee. So maybe didn't have as much money to pay for it. I can't remember. I do remember going there and recording it. So yeah, that was different. It was different from how Jamie did it.
Right. And were
Yeah,
you pleased with it? Because again, this is a 7-inch single at this stage, which had 3 tracks, didn't they? Timeless and
yeah,
Contraceptives and Diamond Rings. So
yeah.
was that one of Fraser's numbers?
Yes, absolutely. They were always they were bleak. There was a lot of bleakness in them, but like I said, there was still hope in them. And he wrote some really nice words. Some of the words in some of these are really quite impressive. I think my
Yes,
favourite line he ever wrote was "Winter's always been a bastard on my jeans," and
so
just
true.
like me, they're coming apart at the seams, which sounded pretty apt to me because that's what winter was like.
Yes.
Your jeans fell apart and it was cold and miserable.
I know. We went to the Army and Navy stores to buy big socks and boots, didn't we?
That's right.
Just to try and keep warm. I know,
Yeah.
it was just all very grim. Did you at that stage feel, as the 80s was finishing, did you feel like also the band was sort of slowly grinding to a halt as well?
Yeah. And I was finishing uni. Our son was, starting to be about 3, 4. We were just starting to think, well, where are we going to live? What are we going to do? And I think not long after that, we'd had enough. We're all a bit fed up with each other. Mike left. Um, I can't even remember why, but it'll be a big falling out about nothing probably. And
Yes.
then we kind of played a last gig, and then we moved through towards near Glasgow. Um, and we still did bits and pieces, and we put an EP out. But life started taking over, work started taking over, children started taking over as they do, and there was less time to do anything like that. Sadly,
Yes. So you
yeah,
did the paint for me a picture EP, which was 6 tracks. So was that kind of your farewell kind of release?
yeah, probably. After that, it was just like I think we did that without Mike and Phil. We just did that on our own.
Right. And
Um,
is the picture on the cover, is that you and your...
One of my sons, yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's such a great photo. God, that must feel quite evocative or strangely emotional.
Absolutely. Well, he was part of the band. He used to go to the rehearsals with us. When I think about it, we so should have had ear defenders on,
I
but he seemed
I
to, seemed to thrive on it. Um,
oh, you couldn't hear him crying, could you?
no, you couldn't hear him crying. He was fine in the corner.
He was, waving.
He was hitting the drum or something. He was grand. No,
Yeah.
he was a big part of it all as well. Um, so his photos on lots of things. I've got a fantastic photograph of him um, in the middle of one of the singles. I can't remember which one it is, where he's staring at a sea of posters in an underpass in Dundee with his face on them. for a gig, and he has faces on it, and he's standing there staring at them. He's about 2 or 3, thinking, I wonder why I'm on all these pictures up
Yes.
here.
He must have been very confused, actually.
Probably.
Everybody said, don't worry, we'll tell you a bit more about it when you get older.
You'll turn out fine in the end, son. It'll all be well.
Yes. So can you remember sitting there and all this saying, to quote Jim Morrison, this is the end?
Yes. Mike left, and Fraser and I were like, I don't think we can be bothered going through another guitarist. We were thinking about leaving Dundee anyway, so we'd said to Phil, look, I think we just need to play a wee final gig. So we paid a big gig in Dundee. There was a lot of people at it, actually, when I think back. And then not long after that, we moved through to Glasgow. So we weren't near anybody else at that point. We'd moved away from them.
Yes.
And then we did that EP in Glasgow. And it sounds quite different because there's nobody else on it. It's just a pair of us trundling about. And I think a guy called Joe played the violin on some of it.
And that was it. There you go. And then did you do career, motherhood, relationship? What was your 90s? Did you or did you do more music at that stage?
I know we did some more music. We still played some gigs. We played with some other people, just bits and bobs, but never really going to play bigger gigs. But then work just took over, so that's probably the past 37 years. That's what it was. It was work and children and go to as many gigs as you can of an evening.
Yeah, well, absolutely. These things do happen, don't they? And then have you sort of felt any kind of enthusiasm for sort of archiving and sort of doing some sort of compilation collection? Because everyone's doing it in a good way, because in a way it's like, and Cherry Red Records have been good, and there's been a few others who've been also quite good at getting
Cherry Red have put us on a few things. So I think we were on the 88, the C86, C87, maybe C88, C89.
Oh, yes, that's true, actually. Yeah.
There was one called Big Gold Dream or something. We were on that. And then there was one called, just maybe a couple of years ago, Women in Independent Women in Music, or Women in Independent Music. Cherry Red did it anyway.
Yes, they've been very good. Was that to do with the publishing then? Or did they just phone you up and ask if they could have it? Because I guess you owned all your music, didn't you?
Yeah. No, they just asked if they could do it. So we were, on you go. Nobody else knows who we were. We were surprised anybody else knew who we were. So we just, put that on. No worries.
Yes.
Lovely.
So yes, I just wondered if you ever thought, God, we should just put a nice little CD or something out with all the sort of music on it. And
maybe we will. I'm retired now, so I could maybe have more time on my hands to do such things. So that would be good. Yeah.
And did you, after the 90s, and obviously work and family, did you sort of ever do any more sort of bands or singing at that stage?
No, not after. No. It was work that took over everything.
Oh yes, it's fine. No, completely understand that kind of sort of. It's amazing, sort of looking back sometimes, thinking, how did one have time to do all these other things? And then suddenly it's like, well, you doesn't have the mental capacity and space to sort of. You think, I've got to focus on this and this. And
absolutely,
I have no. And what was your teaching? What was your subject or lecturing?
Well, it was primary, so I was a head teacher in a couple of schools, and then I went into sort of administration stuff.
Yes.
In the the local council in Glasgow.
Right.
So past 10, 15 years, that's what I was doing. So I'm now retired, and it's wonderful. So maybe now I'm retired, I'll get more time to do a bit of, just like you said, a bit of archiving and things.
Well, it's always fun. I mean, and you've seen, and it's like a lot of people have been doing it, and it's just like, I can see it's really nice on many levels, There's a sort of sense of completion, but also appreciating things that one did back then.
Absolutely.
that you
Yeah.
kind of that was just normal. But then you look back and think, well, actually, that was quite a bizarrely special time. And, that younger self, did all right, really. Sort of had, there wasn't, one didn't have loads of options and sort of possibilities in life. It was all rather, like you said, it was just a few little nuggets and a few
That's
little
right.
things to do, and you just had to try and take them. But yes, there was no gold spoon, I don't know what they call it, one wasn't a rich kid really with lots of sort of connections in family businesses. It was like you just had to get on and sort of do your stuff, really. But yes, that's amazing. I'm really impressed how many gigs you must have gone to and how many miles you must have travelled the motorways up and down, which
A
is
lot of them, and still going to watch a lot of bands now. It's still my
yes.
favourite thing. Yeah.
Well, it's I know, and it's great. I mean, I'm so pleased. There is quite a nice little scene in Norwich still, and people are still doing it, and occasionally get down to the arts centre to see the old band. And thinking, yes, I think the one thing we kind of lack is those kind of gatekeepers, like the John Peel show or the music papers or the press or something, just to sort of, because actually I have not real problems, but just trying to work out where to go to find the interesting bands is a little bit more difficult now.
It is more difficult,
and that's a bit tricky. And you just could do with a John Peel character to say, oh, have a listen to my show, and you'll hear a few interesting things from different genres of sort of whether it's indie pop or African music or reggae or anything. He was always very good at that.
And it was broad, the stuff that he played. I think that was the best thing. There was a broad, wide range of things, so anybody could find a hook there.
Yes.
That could start their own little journey of going out and about and discovering things.
I know, the Bundu Boys, who would have thought?
Yeah,
I know, we loved it. Anyway, look, well, thank you ever so much for your time. This has been amazing. And sort of...
That was a delight, thank you.
And a brilliant internet connection. I know one shouldn't sort of emphasise that too much, but sometimes, it's like, oh my God, it's not great, but this is brilliant. So I know you wouldn't believe New York is a bit of a hit and miss. There's been a few like, oh my God. They go, sorry, the internet is a bit poor here.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, good. I'm so pleased.
It's been good here today, so that's the main thing. It's not raining, so that's why it's good, I think. Yeah.
I know. Last week got on my nerves a bit. Being a cyclist, I got soaked several times.
Oh, it's torture. Absolute torture.
It was a bit tedious. I was getting a bit fed up, actually. But anyway, it's sunny. And it's the solstice coming up, so...
Exactly.
Actually,
So
do you almost get white nights in... Or
Not
is it
quite, but it does seem to be light for a lot of time. Yeah.
God, that must be extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess it starts getting light at 3 a.m, doesn't it?
I suppose it does. But I guess, up in some of these Nordic countries, then it's never dark, is it? It's just...
No, well, that's it. And then 6 months later, it's hardly ever light. I just wonder how that must affect one's brain, actually.
I think it makes them quite depressed, because sometimes it's just dark and then you can't sleep because of the light. It must be hard. I don't know how that works on your brain.
The extreme, the extremes is quite extraordinary, really. Anyway, look, thank you ever so much. I'll keep in touch. But yes, I'll...
lovely to talk to you.
Yes, take care and have a lovely day, evening.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
And that was me in conversation with Andrea Reid, talk about her life in music. This has been the Sadie Six Show. David Eastaugh. Have a great week. Stay safe.